Previously on
if there's something
Movified
that goes on in
Wednesdays.
Tennessee, Patrick has relationships with people that he manages that actually saves me money.
You are looking for exit strategies. You are looking for situations. I remember one of my lawyers saying to me, you do realize though that if you do decide to sell by actually not even having your wife as a partnership, you could have actually split the taxes and saved on the sale, like to end up paying a lot more taxes if you actually had more shares shifted over, as you said. Welcome back to Movified. I'm your host, Mark Hirschi, with Sam's Moving and Storage, with Stephen Reed and Patrick Mayerbock from Mayerbock Law out in Chicago, Illinois, and has multiple offices or branches. But you still have your main one, like your main one's in Chicago, and then you have a couple other offices or satellite offices. Is that what it is?
Mm-hmm. Yep. We Chicago is, there's a reason I carry the weight that I do, and a lot of it is Chicago food. So I got.
Well, if anybody's listening to episode 1, Patrick was talking about this amazing package that he helps moving companies with put together so that they have all the documentation, they have everything set up, and he was saying that typically when he gets this package sent out to your location, they usually also include a deep dish pizza. And it's semi-warm still too. I don't know how he does it. Wherever you're going, you are getting some deep dish pizza. Sign me up. I remember getting one when I was in Chicago, and I got about a quarter of the way through, and I was like, I'm done. It was just too much.
Patrick sent me one. He sent me one one time as a pleasant surprise, as a gift. When he came to visit Memphis, I like to show everybody, make sure they have the best experience of Memphis. And he sent me as a thank you one of those Chicago pies. And I was like, it made my month. When you go my belly, I was just so happy. Getting that in there.
Speaking of that, though, actually there is a moving related to it. There was we had Lou Malnati's is my favorite. It's been a family favorite, and it's Chicago at its best. I actually had a moving claim with the CEO of Lou Malnati's. I almost, how some people get starstruck when they see like Michael Jordan, or they see, when I was dealing with this guy, I'm like, Lou Malnati's CEO, huh?
I'm eating so much of your pizza.
So yeah, that is a thing though. I like that.
Something to think about. Now, the other follow-up on this too is, and Stephen was ending off last episode about this, is guys like myself that are located in Canada. I have connections and contacts for law offices that will lead me the right way, right? Just through networking and getting building relationships. I can have different law firms that I've worked with to go create. I can handle this, I can handle that, but there's really not a Mayerbock law that really can help me when it comes down to the issues that we have in the moving industry. They'll figure it out, most of these firms, especially if they work in transportation law, but that's about it. Have you ever expanded to build out that relationship base in Canada for those Canadian listeners that are going, man, I would love to have that type of connection?
I've had a number of consults where Canadian movers looking to go into the States, but I have not. But I'm definitely open to it. I think that'd be great. I love Canada. I mean, I love, as a kid, that's what we did, is we drive to Canada as a vacation. It was great. People are far nicer than they were in Chicago. So, that was a victory right there. And then Toronto, you get the same benefits of Chicago, but with people who are just quite a bit nicer. But what? I'd love to have a Canadian counterpart. I think it'd be fun. At the end of the day, it's such a niche. And moving is just its own thing that is unlike anything else. That it's always good to have allies, but it would be even better to have a friend who can kind of take a different perspective of the same thing and just work the business out of it. Just work it and make it.
You hear that? You hear that, Big League Movers Canada?
Coming for you. We're coming for you. You're out in Ontario.
Public service announcement. But really, just change your name. It's very small-minded. Let's just not share hashtags on social media, please.
Let's just forget about it. Let's be your own man.
You went to school out here close to Big League Movers and took the name.
No, that's the story. No.
Yeah, he went to Bowling Green, Kentucky. Yeah, he went to Bowling Green out here.
No. Oh, I didn't know that
deep of
the story.
To me. Yeah,
I didn't know that deep of the story. Oh man.
I know. It wasn't a mistake. He didn't just have the wherewithal.
Yeah,
And hey,
Good
Canada doesn't care too much about baseball, so come on, man.
I know exactly.
Let's just move it. Right.
we can't even handle half our sports.
Canadian football's badass though.
It is. I
Yep.
like y'all's version
It
of
really-
football. The rules are intense.
The rules
I
are
love the
intense.
rules.
Yeah,
They
They are for sure. I mean, and you definitely can go see a game for pretty dirt cheap.
The Memphis Mad Dogs. We were a part of the Canadian Football League for a little bit.
Nice.
On that side.
Nice.
One time I saw a guy punch the ref in the nose. One of the linemen got upset. He just punched the ref, and I said, "I like this. I like this Canadian football league."
If you want to watch the real Canadian football, then come out and watch Rugby Sevens that happen up in Vancouver. It's nonstop, one after another, around the world, rugby matches, men and women, and it is a blast. So much fun. Happens in the summertime. Patrick asking for a friend. If someone was looking to expand their company in the States, not in a franchise model, but just looking, saying, hey, listen, I live in the United States, or I live in, well, let's just say we live in Canada, because I'm asking for a friend, and I want to open up a location down in the States. Is that a simple process? Is that an easy process? Is there a certain amount of money that I have to, my friend has to bring down to the States to start off that business? Is it very state related, depending on where you're going? I just hit you with a bunch of questions, but I want quick, but like fire answers as well too, because I want to hit the questions that were actually real questions that people wanted to know.
And no, it's a great question, and you're absolutely right. It's state specific. So, and then it also depends on the model that you have, because, you know, if you're going, how much hands-on do you really have to be? And that's the crux of it. So, for example, you want to go, you know, I'm a big fan of the unregulated states for a variety of reasons. I live in Wisconsin now. That's an unregulated state. By unregulated, I don't mean it's like completely fair game. It just means that there is no mover specific set of regulations. It's you're kind of reverting back to the general trucking regulations, but you know, it's not as onerous as some of the other states. But you know, the thing is, you have to have you have to have a team that you can trust. Number one, you know, if you're going, you know, stateside, it's really about having a team that you can trust, but at the same time, you have to have the natural checks on your business depending on how you run that. Because when if you had an imprint, say for example in Canada, and it's already, you know, you have your brand, your identity, your way to do things, your SOPs, it all makes sense. Now what you're doing is you're trying to take a model that works in the Canadian context, and you're trying to essentially retrofit it in a completely different context, which is not all that. It's by no means impossible, but it does take some thinking, because, you know, when what you're doing then is your exposures and your liability and your operational aspects, you know, from employees to compliance on docks to this to that, you have to take the concept from the Canadian perspective and you have to translate that to the American perspective. And one thing I can say in the American perspective, what makes it very difficult is the federal regulations often don't make sense. They're archaic in a sense, and then there's two different regulatory bodies that have say in it. Sometimes they conflict each other. Sometimes they just don't know. So you're trying to take, you know, something that's established.
Whoa! Cell phone on?
I thought I should.
Jeez, I'm joking. Go on.
I know, you know. Oh, I had that in court too. I got reamed out by a judge, and then I just kind of smiled at him, looked at that, and then he kind of warmed up just by the smile. So, you know, you're trying to retrofit it. You're trying to have it make sense in a new world. You just have to start by knowing who you are, your identity in the Canadian context, and then, you know, be able to articulate what that is when you're translating that to the States.
Is it easier in two different scenarios? And you can just give me which one's easier, what one makes more sense. If I was looking to then purchase, I'm going to acquire a moving company, an established moving company in the States as a Canadian resident, is it easier for me to go, cool, I'm buying this company, I'm taking over, I'm moving down there with my family and doing that in a sense? Or does it work if, let's say, someone like Steven goes, not that it's happening, listeners, so don't get get all ruffled up here, but Steven goes, hey, listen, we're expanding big league. We're bringing it into Canada. We're getting Mark to come out to Nashville, open up a location here. I'm hiring them as like, whether And let's make it easy for people instead of going, well, now Steven has to give up shares and everything else, and he's the acquiring part of the business. He's not. Let's just say I'm going to come down and be like general manager, or I'm going to be like VP of something, and because I'm opening up another location. Which one is easier? Is it easier for me to turn around and go, look, I picked up this small moving company that had like 2 trucks or even like 1 truck. Let's make it like 1 truck, small location, selling it for like $60,000. Great, perfect, easy purchase, cash sale. I can move to that location because now I'm opening up a location, apply for status, I guess, or like a visa, like a working visa, some type of, because now I have the company, I'm required to be there. Or does it also work in a way if someone like Steven says, hey, listen, we're going to hire you to come out, and like, how does that work?
I feel like Mark's writing a job description for Nashville.
And just to be clear, there's always, customization, there's nuances to everything. But from a general perspective, I like the buying a small moving company model. And here's why is, people, and I tell moving companies this all the time, people often don't realize the value in what they have from an intellectual property standpoint. By intellectual property, it doesn't mean necessarily, but it can. You have a trademark that, it has, it's hard hitting, it's well, it's well established, it's well respected, yada, yada. But just having something, it says something about the business. Now, there's a big cautionary aspect. If you are going down that route, you have to do a tremendous amount of due diligence, and not just in what you think. Okay, do you have your authority? Yeah, I have my authority. Okay, great. Do you have, do you have any lawsuits, any pending lawsuits or anticipated lawsuits? No, we're good. Okay. Look at the insurance costs. That is going to be one of the biggest issues that you can find when buying an existing company. What is their DOT score? What are you walking into? Because essentially you're stepping into those shoes. Depending on how you structure the deal, you're stepping into those shoes. Now you just inherited the only insurance you're going to be able to get is Progressive because nobody else will touch you, and you're paying through the roof.
Is that because you did a share sale as opposed to an asset sale or an asset purchase?
The problem is when you're doing the asset purchase, that's when you kind of, I shouldn't say problem, but the extra steps that you have to address is your regulatory aspects. You have to actually go through and move forward with the filings to facilitate that transfer if it's an asset. So there's your point. That's a great point. Let's just say everything else is good, but they have a terrible DOT score. Okay, well, now you go in and you make it more of an asset structured deal, and you go in, you actually just, it's generally not that bad, but you go before the regulators, you get that figured out, you get that stamped up, and you move on from there. So you arguably would have the best of both worlds there. It is situation specific, but you really have to know what you're looking for. What is your end goal with the company too? Are you looking to build it, sell it to PE? Or are you looking for a nest egg for your kids? Or are you looking at it just as a hobby? Which, I mean, I don't know anybody who does moving for a hobby, but I guess maybe somebody's out there who does.
Before we ever started using a moving CRM, someone asked me, could you 10X what you're doing right now with the current systems and processes you have in place? And I said, no. And so he was like, well, then you need to just pull the trigger on the software. And then I saw Smart Moving and it was game over.
Austin joined thousands of moving owners on Smart Moving in 2021. Since then, he's more than doubled his business.
And I always compare Smart Moving to Apple products. It's just so simple, so easy to use. And that's really what's allowed my team to scale and now have 2 branches. And last year we scaled Central Coast Moving over 50% growth.
If you're ready to turn your moving company into a machine that drives profit, not chaos, try Smart Moving.
If you're considering Snowball, just do it.
Snowball creates done-for-you referral programs for moving companies so you can turn happy customers into new revenue without lifting a finger. And the results speak for themselves.
In less than a year, we've collected over 2,000 referrals.
We generated over $200,000 of revenue that cost about $5,000 to do it.
I believe we have 4 or 5 the very first day.
The companies winning with Snowball are the ones that already care about their customers. We just help turn that into new business through human outreach and customer nurturing.
Snowball is part of the arsenal of tools that I recommend to my clients because it works.
I love moving. I wake up at 3 thinking about moving, so I think I consider it a hobby.
Yeah, and you and I have talked. Like, I'll be like, I'll be waking up, we'll get my coffee, I'll be okay, start, typing. And hey, Steven, ABC. All right, Patrick. And it's like, I look at 4:30 a.m. Cool. I don't know if he's ending the night or just beginning.
If you know me, you put me on D&D in your phone because you're gonna get a 5 a.m. text every now and then on that side.
That's what I love about it. You know what I mean? You're
Is that your phone again?
Yeah, it is.
Let's run through some scenarios. Should I wait till the phone stops ringing before that happens?
You know what? That is an obnoxious ring too. I don't like that ring, but
It makes you answer.
we're good.
Tony's going through a $2,500 case, small claims case. It's filing small claims court paperwork, but it's unsure of the best approach because what is his legal recourse for a customer who does not pay the bill? So customer did not pay the bill. It's a $2,500 bill. He's now being forced to take it to small claims. They're not responding back to him. What should he be doing?
There's two aspects here, to break it down very simply, there's your obvious, is it worth pursuing? And then number two, what people often don't think about is the reputation of the business relative to these sort of scenarios. So point in case, that next door app, where you move into a neighborhood and, people are talking, oh, I recommend this and that. I was in Chicago and there was a couple of movie companies that I represented. There was a whole topic of discussion. Hey, go to this person, file this kind of claim, and they're going to pay you more than if you do it this way and this way. So reputation is important as well. So you have to weigh the two. But if I were just generally speaking from Tony's perspective, what I like to do with my clients in certain scenarios, so you create whatever threshold, and it's generally jurisdictionally based. Is it $10,000 and under, $5,000 under, whatever? But teach. And by that I mean is you have one set of meetings, maybe you take 2 hours to sit down with the client, you walk them through how to do a small claims lawsuit. So now you're not having to pay for an attorney to do each and every one of these. You equip the client to do it because generally judges are a little bit more forgiving when you walk in and you're representing yourself. Now, some jurisdictions require you to have an attorney. So that's where it gets a little bit messy. But oftentimes things like those small collection cases can effectively be done either through, done yourself if you're very good with paperwork and you can get up and talk, or ghostwritten. We do that quite a bit for clients. We'll have the client handle it. We'll do all the drafting. We tell them what to say and they do it, and it works. So while it depends on, the geography, I'm a huge fan of movers going to an attorney, not just for whatever they're asking for. Hey, I need a document that does this, but whatever they're asking for in addition to the education that goes along with it. Because, at the end of the day, our philosophy is the better our clients do, the better we do, because it's a reflection of back and forth. I want Stephen to be able to go out and focus on building more and more business because that's a better use of his time. He's very good at that. He shouldn't be worried about these kind of little mundane nonsense things. Just sort in the process. Have an SOP. One of the big things to that point, we do SOPs. We're big on SOPs for storage. You should not be paying me to conduct your auctions. You should have one of your ops guys go through the checklist, follow it, and just do exactly what we tell you to do once, and you can replicate it over and over and over. That's cost effective.
Does your office handle collections at all, or do you recommend us using collections before we get to that point?
We do handle collections. We have a different philosophy to it. So your typical collections company, I'll tell you, legally speaking, is quite soft. You use a couple magic words, they back off. Like FDCPA. That Collection Practices Act, and they go, ooh, okay, I'm going to go to the next file. It's a volume-based business. We approach collections just like any other lawsuit. For us, we're brought in more on the reputation side because of that, but we approach it just like any other lawsuit, and we do our homework on the person. What do they do for a living? Is this person collectible? Is it even worth pursuing this? Okay, yeah, they are. Well, why aren't they paying? Is it because they forgot? Maybe we can get their attention just by a simple phone call. That happens sometimes, busy professional. Hey, Mr. So-and-so, I got to file a suit against you. I don't want to do it. Can you just pay my guy? Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I forgot. No problem. Or is he a tough guy? Well, I'm going to get my lawyers. Okay, let's do that then. The biggest thing, what I can tell Tony, standardize the process. At the end of the day, your time is money and money is money, obviously. You're going to save both by standardizing the process and making sure that it's efficient to the degree that it's requiring less time for that return on the market.
When you are dealing with storage, let's kind of continue on the storage side of things. What is there a certain type of process when it comes down to putting a storage lien down on a customer that hasn't paid? Let's say they're, you kind of give that 3 months. All right, now I'm going to put a lien down. Like, is there a type of document, a type of letter that you can send out? Do you provide this if we reach out to you? Is there something we could find online? Can we chat GPT it, or do you highly avoid that? I can only assume now everybody's their own lawyer, right? Act like Patrick
Oh, we
Mayerbock,
just went into a different episode there.
right? And craft me a lawyer based on the movingattorney.com website and Mayerbock Law on how to create my storage lien processes. Like, is there something like that, like to have, like, should there be a certain timeline that you would have? I guess that kind of goes back to the contracts, right? When you're setting someone up for storage, have that really laid out and fine-tuned so that they are aware after 60 days non-payment, there will be a lien on your items, Please initial here that you understand that there's going to be, like, there's this, there's that. And then after, like, how do I send the collections process legally?
So it's just really like any other lawsuit. So, typically the typical is you send out a demand letter first saying, hey, look, you didn't pay. Here's a copy of the contract. This is what you owe. This is why you owe it. Pay it now, or we're going to do X by X date. The thing that I don't like about the typical collections companies, it's a lot of bluffing. They eat scary, we're going to file suit. How often do they really do it? And then, because it's such a volume base, it's not in their business model. It really depends on how much. If it's $300 collections, but with the jurisdiction that you're in, and you have a $300 filing fee, why are you going to do it? It's not worth your time. However, when I kind of going back to what I talked about with the processes and procedures, there's a little trick that I like to recommend to my clients, and that is when it comes to collections, put them in a process together. Collection should be its own file folder. It should be its own SOP, not, the Jones file, the Williams file, and things like that. When they're in that collection status, they're in their own ballpark. So if you are filing suit and you have 5 collections cases, and maybe not, maybe they're not all worth that amount, but hey, guess what? It's still something that's kind of on the bubble. Well, if you package them all together, often what you can do, you file them at the same time. Obviously, you're still paying the multiple filing fees, but you schedule them at the same time, and you start going down that process at the same time. So instead of handling one case here, or one case Monday, one case Wednesday, one case Thursday, one case Friday, why don't you do all of them on Friday? Or why don't you all of them on Thursday? You save the time, and it becomes the law of averages. Is each one of those cases going to play out? Probably not. But you're increasing your odds, generally speaking. So it makes it more worthwhile, and it's just much more cost effective. So, most states have a pretty long statute of limitations on collections, written contract documents. So use that to your favor. I wouldn't do it during the peak season. Why? Wait till off peak. Set up a little budget for the costs. Typically collections cases, you're not hiring experts, things like that typically, shoot up the fees associated with litigation. So save up a little bit of budget, file all 10 of them in November. See what happens. And you'd be surprised just how quick these things can resolve themselves.
Are you a mover looking to make an impact? Discover Moving Letters AI and join the ML Plus Club today. Elevate your customer engagement with the personal touch of handwritten letters.
If you want to take your company to that next level, it's the only way to subscribe. If you're doing anything but Moving Letters AI, you need to get on it. So it's going to take your business to that next level. You're going to see an increase in that revenue. Let's go.
I highly recommend using this company. They're amazing to work with. They even send you an email on how much work they're producing for you.
Don't miss out. Join the revolution and start making moves that matter.
Put a golden damn ticket in there with Moving Letters AI.
Being found on the second page of Google is literally like having a billboard in the middle of the desert. Your mama ain't gonna see it. No one's gonna see it. You're on the second page of Google, no one's gonna call, no one's gonna book. Here is the deal. If your business is not ranking on the top of Google, that means your competitors are going to be stealing your customers every single day. So at Rotate Digital, we don't play any guessing games. We use data-driven SEO strategies to make sure Google finds you first so that these Google searches turn into your customers, not your competitors' customers. How do we do it? We do it through AI-driven keyword optimization, exclusive blog networks, backlinking strategies, and honestly, the secret stuff, the proprietary lead attribution software. So what do you get as a result? You get not only good marketing, but now you get clarity into what is bringing you more revenue. So if that's something you want to do, you want to make sure your leads find you and not your competition, go ahead and go to rotatedigital.com, schedule a call, and we'll help you take your business to the top of Google.
Perfect. Well, and I really appreciate that.
I put it on the screen. So he said, Tony, I was told a police report should be filed for theft of service. Maybe we can get some clarity on that as well. I'm curious about this myself because sending someone to collections isn't a guarantee of payment.
Very good question. Very good. And this is again, it depends on your jurisdiction. And here's why. I've actually done, I'm going to tell you the other side. If there's a good attorney on the other side, what they're going to do if you do a theft of service. Most states have provisions in law that make it actionable, meaning you can countersue for false accusations of criminal allegation. Okay, so it gets somewhat complex, but what I've done before, not in the moving context, but this applies to collections generally. This was on a commercial deal. Somebody filed against my guy on that same thing of theft of services. What I did is I filed a response, or actually I filed aggressively a lawsuit in the civil realm while the criminal case was still being investigated. And I framed it in such a way where I said that this was a false accusation, explained why. So that closed down the criminal end because typically, unless it's really sexy and juicy, they're not going to pursue the criminal end. Now I have this claim going against the other side. They're trying to collect on my guy, but I'm going after them for money for a false accusation. So you have to be careful when you're doing this. And as simple as this is, I would go to your local PD, talk to the chief if you can, talk to somebody who's high up and be like, hey, how do you guys view this scenario? Is this something you guys are going to pursue? Or is this something that's just going to kind of be a paper on your desk and nobody's going to do anything about it? See what they say. See if you could get some comfort from that conversation, because it might be a great way to go. Because if, the copper calls up and says, and gets, tells them this is a theft of service, we're investigating this for criminal action, and the customer freaks out and pays right there, that was a very cost-effective way of doing it. However,
hey, just talking about the law that is theft of service and what a felony is, guys, use that. Nobody wants to move in the new neighborhood with police at night. So, try that before you call the police. Try to interact and say it might lead to this and see where that takes you. They might call a friend, phone a friend of that side.
Well, and does this also follow? I mean, a lot of times, like we talked about before, the whole storage situation, the non-payments, can you also run the same scenario with storage as well too, when it comes down to theft?
No, I wouldn't. And here's why, because and this is, while technically they could typically write it up as theft of service, they can't, if they extrapolate the statute depending on the jurisdiction, what's going to happen is they're just not going to care. They're going to say it's a civil matter, go deal with it with an attorney. So I wouldn't even waste the time doing it and then open up that exposure. So definitely, I wouldn't do it storage. But if you think about it from a moving perspective, that's very in your face. The truck's right there, that's tangible. Whereas storage, in the eyes of the law enforcement agency, is a little bit more distant.
It makes sense. You provided a service, but it's just sitting in your storage. Like you actually have assets that you could sell, so it's not exactly theft.
Great questions, Tony and Jamie. Great questions on those.
Yeah, these are great, guys.
And one thing to keep in mind with that, the surrounding theme is, this is where a good set of documents comes into play. Know your tools. If the law allows you a lien on these items, utilize it. You got to be careful in some respects. Like Florida has a really wacky rule that pertains to child's items. Believe it or not, it's something that I've actually never seen it enforced, but it is on the books. You got to understand your environment. But once you get a command of your environment, you get it. Use your tools and unapologetically so. You still have to pay your movers. You still have to pay for the truck. You still have to pay insurance. This guy doesn't want to pay. He wants to essentially what it is theft. So use the resources that you have.
Well, one of the big things that comes up all the time, we have it in the conversations with our guys, and it got brought up in the list of questions with everybody that was feeding us with questions. And that is, how should you structure your employment letter, specifically when it comes to hiring movers? Because my biggest pet peeve for me is, if I hire you to build something and you've built it, and the moment you walk away, it all falls down. Did you really build it?
Yeah, I agree.
Is there a reason why I should be paying you? And that's the same thing for me, that if I've hired you, you have the training, you have the experience, you've went in and damaged something that should have never been damaged. You didn't pad it properly. You didn't follow the proper tools and training that we provided you, and resulted in, let's say, $1,000 damage that I have to pay out of pocket. Why are you not having to pay something out of your pay? Or why should I be even paying you for the 8 hours that you worked that day, because you really didn't actually fulfill the job that you had? It's every owner's biggest pet peeve when you're relying on a service to be performed by others and not yourself. But I've always learned, at least in Vancouver, that, when it comes down to the law, you can't just turn around and start deducting your employees for those type of mistakes. And there are gray area around it where you can go, hey, listen, you're paid $20 an hour, but I'm actually going to be paying you an extra $1 an hour bonus. And at the end of the month, if there's no damages based on the hours that you worked, we'll pay out that bonus. Or you can put it into a pool of all your employees, and everybody gets that $1 an hour bonus. And this way you can say, look, we gave you a raise. You're technically getting paid $21 an hour. You just have to keep that bonus by no damages. If anything, that bonus kitty goes to pay for those damages.
Chances. So number one, you can't dog pay. This is where, I would ask the client who would come to me, okay, are you in the business out in principle? Are you trying to change the morals of society, or are you going to make money? I mean, obviously, I morally have a major issue with that as well. I mean, your work, your craft, that's a reflection of who you are as a person. And somebody who doesn't take that seriously, or just put some stock in it, there's something wrong with them. Now, the legal side is this. The laws consistently are very, very, very hard on that sort of thing, to the point that it could become very expensive if you go down that route. And I'll tell you what, your guy who gets fired and goes and watches daytime TV, and with all those dipshit lawyers on TV, say, hey, super that. Actually, there's a moving specialist guy that Slater sent me the other day. It was hilarious. This guy's got like rap in the background. He's got, he's like, I'm a lawyer, kind of going after the moving company.
Patrick taught me that off the bat. I got to share that. Patrick was like, hey, you got somebody at workers' comp. Somebody's calling him to sue you right now. Get him to work. Get him to where he's not sitting on that. I don't care if he's just sitting there looking at you all day, Stephen. That was a lesson that Patrick taught me pretty quickly.
Have them shuffle paper, have them whatever, it just, whatever you do, you keep them out of that environment, because that there's a reason they do those things. And Stephen, what Stephen does, Stephen is one of the tightest operations that of anybody that I know. And because what he does is he takes the big concept, takes the recommendations on how to run it from an operation standpoint, and implements. It's just done, which is awesome. I mean, which makes his claims, which are few and far between, that much more manageable. You had a scenario when you're dealing with your employees. If you think about it, there's psychology is a big part of this. What you said, Mark, about the pool of money, I love that idea. Now you got to clear it from a local, wherever you're located, because different states have different interpretations. But generally speaking, you do that as a bonus, so you're not messing with any minimum wage requirements, things of that nature. But you put that in the bonus, and you make it collective, maybe with a crew. Well, now what you're doing is you're putting peer pressure, and so that foreman, and maybe kick the foreman a little bit more, make him more accountable. Maybe he gets a little higher percentage, because he's going to tell his guys, hey, wrap that thing, don't half-ass it, that sort of thing. And you're basically buying another set of eyes to protect your interests, whether or not they realize that that's exactly what they're doing. So that's a huge play. And the one thing I'll say, and this is very, very, very important, if you put somebody on a do not hire them. Because, the thing with moving, it's so, it's so seasonal that, I mean, you have people shuffling back and forth and company to company and this and that. If you've had a bad experience with somebody before, it's not going to change. They're going to be that same, but they're going to be more emboldened because they now, psychologically speaking, they know that they've gotten away with it before. I'll get away with it again. There's no ramifications. Who cares? So it's a lot of who you select to work with that's going to go into it. And you frankly want team players. You want people who are willing to work. There's a big shortage of people these days. There's a big shortage of men.
And you're right about the psychology about it, because everybody likes to feel appreciated. No one likes to be put down. So to turn around and put someone down constantly because they had a claim, that might not be their fault. It could have been a group team effort on the job, but now he's getting the run to blame for it. I mean, there's every scenario you can think of. But I always find that if you can at least appreciate them and praise them, I mean, that's why you have MVPs in the company. That's why you try and celebrate them with employees of the month. Those kind of bonus structures can be huge. I kind of want to switch it a little bit on here, because this happens a lot. A customer, our company sells release value protection, or a full value protection. This is coming from Joshua's question here about the full value protection.
Golden movers, shout out,
buddy. The question really is are we still required to cover the 60 cents per pound legal liability coverage if their claim falls below their deductible? So they turn around, got like $1,000 coverage, or a $500 with a $500 deductible. Do they still have to kind of handle this if they've already paid the $500? Is it just like
and Joshua's in Florida for reference? Golden Movers is in Florida,
right? Yeah, let's say the $400 worth of damage.
Yeah, excellent question. So this is, and by the way, Faith, thank you. Shout out to Faith. You're awesome.
Hey, Faith.
This is a great question. So it really, this is where the devil's in the details and how you write your FVP program. And one of the things that the regulators are going to look at, not only are the language itself, but how it's presented. Okay, so I agree. So deductible, now what is a deductible? That's typically an insurance type word. So people automatically think deductible, it's insurance, like, and they think these things apply. So what you have to do is you have to be very cautious and very intentional in how you set up that program. I always like to do a separate disclosure that basically explains the nitty-gritty of how these things work from a practical standpoint. In fact, do an example. This is, so-and-so has a $500 deductible, and that they have $400 in damage, and inconsistent with the policy in subsection 2B, because it's under, you're not entitled to anything. So that is kind of the devil's in the details in drafting it properly. Now, with that being said, it can be interpreted different ways as to whether or not you have to pay that 60 cents per pound. I can make an argument both ways. At the end of the day, it's like you're just covering your own ass. Bless you. You're covering your own ass. Pay out the 60 cents per pound. I always recommend doing it. It's a nominal amount. Just do it, because at the end, you got to remember, the people who are overseeing this, if you do get beefed and you're going through a proceeding, now you're in a situation where somebody who probably doesn't understand moving, and I would be willing to bet that they not only don't understand moving, the first thing they think of when they get a moving company is negative. They're going to look at this like, well, why'd you do it that way? Pay them, be done with it.
We recently hired Ready Rolls to help us with hiring some offshore help, some VAs, and they've done an amazing job. They found the perfect candidate for our company. Not only that, they helped answer the questions that we had about the process. Initially, hiring a VA can be a bit intimidating, but they answered all the questions. It's been an amazing experience. Our VA has been a huge part of our success thus far. We're actually in the process of hiring a few more right now. Definitely see them doing a key part of our growth and reaching our goals in 2025.
And another game changer for our company. I'm confident to be a game changer.
Visit ReadyRolls.com. There is now a better way to scale.
I agree. I always tell people, listen, this isn't the early 1990s where you didn't have internet and, it was more word of mouth, looking up a phone book, and moving companies were there. Like if you needed something, you went on there. Now it's just so easy with the Google reviews being blasted on the BBB, being blasted in so many different channels that exactly like Patrick's saying, look, yeah, sure, your policy says if you want that $1,000 coverage, it's or whatever type of coverage is a $500 deductible to make sure you're taken care of. The claim's $400. Phone them up and say, look, it's typically 60 cents at the pound, but we really don't follow this. How about we meet in the middle and I give you $200? And if you ever need us again or recommend us to a friend, let them know that they referred you by you. I'll shoot you an extra $100 on top of that. We'll make sure you're taken care of on your claim. Like that will probably still get you a 5-star review, then probably a 1-star review saying, look, you know what? I had a claim. It was $400. They were good. This got damaged, but I'm only going to give them 1 or 2 stars now when I'm reviewing them because I still wasn't happy. I didn't really understand that full value protection, like nobody ever really does, and you're stuck.
Patrick doesn't get all my claims, but Patrick gets my claims that I see are going to be a pain in the ass and that probably need somebody to tell me, just go ahead and pay this and move on from this lady. She can damage you here. So Patrick doesn't handle all my claims, but he gets the bad ones on my side. This one, there's somebody that's asking stuff like this, I would send it to Patrick and just ask that he gets some kind of understanding that we're on the same page, that she's not going to bash us later, and this is over.
Oh, I was just going to say to that point, Steven, that's a great point. I should, like, the way I envision our business, we don't want all claims. We want to train our clients and educate our clients as how the claim should be processed. Absolutely. It's not cost effective to have me, deal with an IKEA desk. It's just not. However, when you get that theft, which I think I did a number of all the theft claims, which we see often. I think somewhere around a rough ballpark, 75% are bullshit, for various circumstances, but you get the bull poo, which if my daughter was here, she'd be yelling at me. Then my middle one, Debbie, she hates swearing. She lets you know. But
you see that guilty dad moment, Mark? You see, he just paused and had a guilty dad moment.
Yeah, because they're real.
My guilty moment is my 2.5-year-old dropping the F word every randomly, just thinking it's an average word. And as cute as it is, I'm like, oh, I'm totally fucking up right now as a parent. Like literally, it's like,
despite best efforts, it's.
Patrick, this is kind of this is one of our last questions, which will still probably drag out to another 20 minutes, knowing me and Steven. But here's a situation that happens quite often, right? And I'll give you a bit of the context of this claim that he's dealing with, but it happens all too often. You have an A crew that goes out there, even if it's a B crew, and they're super nice and polite. This customer goes, hey, listen, you know what? This washer and dryer, can you guys disconnect it, reconnect it at our other home? I really appreciate you guys doing this. You guys are doing such an amazing job. I'll even give you guys a larger tip. The guys go, even if it's like a fairly new crew, let's say it's a really good crew, or doesn't understand a lot of the policies that have been embedded into them about what not to do, goes, I just want to make sure the customer's happy, right? Like, this is our 5-star service. They're always telling me in the office, 5-star, 5-star. Sure, ma'am. Like, no problem. We can definitely disconnect this and we'll reset this up and everything else. They go ahead. His crew hooks up the washer and the water lines at the customer's new home. Flood. $45,000 in damages. It's a huge no-no that I've learned since day one. Listen, go get
Patrick,
someone
we
else
feel
to deal
you
with
in
it.
this. Mark
Oh,
and
Patrick,
I feel you.
we feel you,
in
and
your
we've
words
been
here.
there. I had a customer a couple months back. It got brought up just recently too, because it's such a stupid. Well, it's one of my drivers, longtime driver, not even a heavy set guy, uses the customer's washroom, and he's a total sit down peer, I guess, right? Like, he's like, I swear to you, I didn't even go number 2.
Oh, he tanked
Went
the
to stand up,
bathroom.
and the back of the toilet bowl, whatever, disconnected, and water started spraying everywhere. And because it was an old home, the thing was like rusted, like the bolts were, you could see it on the photos, and I went there on site and everything else. And the
Nothing's more
customers-
embarrassing for that mover too.
Oh,
poor dude,
poor guy,
honestly.
right? And I felt so bad for the situation, but it was one of those where it's like, who's at fault? You could have had a friend that came over and just sat there, like, it's how are we to blame for utilizing your washroom? You allowed us to use the washroom. It's not our fault your toilet wasn't properly sealed and things are going to fall apart. But at the end of the day, we still paid the claim, and I know I want to value our customers and our clients and make sure they're happy. We came to a final agreement. It was all taken care of and done. But in Patrick's situation, that was like a $450 or $500 situation. You know what I mean? Like, it was a quick, easy fix. I just wanted to deal with it. Maybe it was a bit more, but this is not a $45,000 claim. What could Patrick do in this situation?
This again,
Call Patrick.
You got to go back.
Yeah,
I mean, it's got a great name, so we're obviously friends already. So this is one of those situations where it's like that you have a very, very good set of documents, because even if whatever happens, there should be something in that set of documents that you can lean on, even if it's not a clear cut dead bang winner. You want to have something that's workable, okay? That's some sort of leverage in the situation. So first thing you do is, number one, you alert your insurance. $45,000 is a lot of money. If it's $1,000, that's another consideration. Do you want to get hit on do you want that to hit
If
your
I'm
loss
not
fund?
mistaken, too, weirdly, flooring usually is handled by cargo and not general liability in a weird way.
It depends on the policy. They're written differently. And that's a whole. I mean, we could do like 4 podcasts just on the insurance.
Painful
aspects.
experience
really.
talking right there, guys. My belly was hurting as I was saying that statement.
Oh, it's.
Why do I know too much about that?
But in his, you don't. It's not. You don't want to know too much about insurances. It'll just depress you. For Patrick's situation, what number one, you take your guys and you talk to them, and you really hammer the need to be honest. What was the discussion? Did the customer just ask you and you just did it? Or did you say, hey, I'm really not supposed to do it? And the customer's like, come on, you do it, and nothing's gonna happen. I'm not gonna hold you responsible, just do it. Those details matter. And especially if you have a more favorable background on that, you want to memorialize right away. You want to have them write a statement. You want to have them, just be very clear as to what the nature of it is. So you want to understand the facts, because what's going to end up happening, realistically speaking, is the insurance is going to pay out, and then the insurance is going to come after you, what's called subrogation. So it's a very common process. The insurance says, I don't care. I paid out this claim. So now, because I paid out this claim, it's incumbent upon you to deal with it, and you're going to pay me back as the insurance. Well, a lot of people get scared by the subrogation, but it's actually, it's a different type of litigation, and they can be deterred in some instances easier than your just traditional person coming after you and suing it, because everything to them is a business decision. It's just dollars and cents. There is no other element to it. So if you show that you have a viable argument, i.e. that scenario where the customer was told they can't do it, but the customer instructed them to do it notwithstanding, waiver would be the legal term of that, they might not want to pursue it then. So, it's one of these situations where it's very factually specific. However, this is where a provision in your tariff or a provision in your BOL that says expressly, we are not to undertake any sort of appliance removal and reinstallation in such event that, you request and the movers.
Well, now I've had it in the past where we've been asked to move something. Maybe it's not that type of scenario, but it was out of the ballpark or out of the criteria of what we were asked to move. Even in a situation where the customer goes, look, I got to get this dresser out of this townhouse. I don't care if the walls get damaged. It needs to get out, right? We hear it all the time, right? It needs to get out. Our driver will call dispatch. Our dispatch will probably transfer it sometimes over to me, right? And go, Mark, like, how do you want to handle the situation? I don't want to, get in trouble. And sure, there can be an SOP on it, but to me, every scenario is somewhat different. And that's usually the policy. If it gets to that extreme, call me. But I've usually said to my guys in the back, look, you make an extra line, right? I, so-and-so, the customer, take full responsibility and liability if there's any damages caused by da 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 da. Get them to sign it, put the date there, and you initial it as the driver, that everybody is both aware, and that you reiterate to the customer, we're not taking any liability if your walls get damaged, but we'll move it for you. Will that still legally kind of work in that scenario? Like, is there should there be a better verbiage? Does it just matter as long as there's something where the customer sign off that says, I take full responsibility?
Great question. And here generally most of the time, and here's why. But I would beef it up a little bit more. And what we actually do with our clients is we give a blank form, or I'm sorry, a form with the included language, but a blank to fill in whatever it is. I'm going to move an X amount of couch through, an X amount of door where it's likely they're going to get injured. Put that in there so the mover can quickly write that in. And then we have all the release and the indemnity language. That's key. The indemnity language.
That was the word. Yeah, right.
You put that in there, have them sign it. The majority of the time that's going to work. However, some jurisdictions, believe it or not, don't allow it. Georgia, for example, you can't waive anything. So even if you get that document signed, now you're in a situation where that's not enforceable. So a judge, in theory, then is obligated to look at it and throw it away. And so where does that lead you? So you got to know your jurisdiction. You got to know your laws. And that's, that's a one-off. That's not the majority, but it is, it's a very significant one-off. So this is where it kind of it pays from the beginning, get your set of documents very, very tight, because that would be brought up at that point. Well, if you can't wait, then
now saying Patrick does not have this in here, right? He probably just has like a standard liability BOL. I don't know the full. Would his best bet right now be to reach out to your office to kind of get a more in-depth scenario to kind of, because what could he do in this scenario? Could he just like fight against it? He's stuck now. He's probably getting a $45,000 claim. Should he just run it through his insurance? Should he just like suck it up and go, all right, like this is what it is?
Great question. And here again, and there might be a recurring theme, but I don't trust insurance. One of the things that, and this is routine on the clients that I work as outside general counsel, Stephen included, when there's an insurance claim, well, Stephen doesn't have many of them. We monitor it from the lawyer perspective, because insurance is, again, kind of going back to what I said about subrogation. It's all about dollars and cents. And a lot of times the insurance does not care about, what the business impact is going to be and what your loss run impact is going to be. So there's many, oh yeah, it's all built out. However, the insurance adjusters don't even realize that at the end of the day, typically it's upon the mover, the insured, the one who actually pays the bills, to reasonably dictate a result with some, conditions. Now, with that being said, Patrick needs to be involved in that claim, because he's just got to keep an eye and make sure the adjuster's not half-assing it. They sell a bill for $45,000. Oh, I'm going to pay it because I want to be done. No, there should be some discernment on it.
And that's where dollars and cents are changed for your company for years on that loss run that affects.
Absolutely. And the insurance doesn't care, because they know there's only a select number of carriers that write these policies. So at the end of the day, there's less of a pool to shop it out amongst. And if you have a higher loss run, you're probably locked in with them anyway. So this is one where, I'm happy to talk to Patrick. What we do, anybody who refers you guys, we offer a free consultation. We waive our consultation fee. Talk about it.
Yeah, let him get to know your business, so when there is something, I mean, you utilize that consult. Patrick's trying to get to know you. Patrick's trying to help you grow, and then y'all can grow together. And I can attest to that relationship. On the questions that we didn't get to, there's a few more. Patrick, and can I send those over and you just do a video and send some answers, and then Mark can kind of clip it up and we can send it out, or y'all can send it to these.
If you want to try and keep the answers to under 2 minutes, we can kind of clip them up and make them into little short video clips for those that want to answer it.
There's a few more, maybe like 5 or 6. There's one in my DMs from Jamie, storage related.
Yeah, we love storage. No problem. Yeah, I'd be happy. Anything you guys need, Steven's a good friend, not just in business, but he's a very good friend personally. So, we truly treat our clients as our own. this old school Chicago loyalty slant, you know, that you just put into your relationships. And at the end of the day, that's what we employ. We're somewhat or
straight shooters,
you know.
I didn't want to say Patrick's worldwide too. We said the states except for Hawaii, but Patrick with Ready Rolls has had to learn Filipino law for my business in the Philippines. So shout out to Patrick for being worldwide this past year.
There's good people in the Philippines, very, very good people, and very the way they conduct themselves is very just, it's nice.
It's refreshing.
It's let's
I
combat.
love it.
Yeah, it is.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Patrick, listen, this has been a pleasure. You know, there's going to be several follow-up episodes coming up. We'd love to try and have Patrick on as a regular guest, and that would be awesome. MeyerbockLaw.com. Check it out. We'll have the links in there as well, too. And then you have the movingattorney.com. But, hey, it's under construction. It's up there, but you're going to be there? Fantastic. Fantastic. So that's great. We'll definitely have to do a sit-down follow-up there. And we're looking forward to it. Awesome, Patrick. For all those that are listening, share your comments. We'd love to know what if you have any more questions for Patrick that you'd like answered. And also, we just always really appreciate you following us, listening to us. Make sure if you really like this episode, hit us with a 5-star review, whether you're listening to on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or Spotify. And for all those listeners, stay movified. Thanks, guys.
Pleasure's on them. Thank you, everybody.